if I had to make a movie about House of the Dead, it wouldn't be as good as the one Uwe Boll.
Is that your barometer for like good movie or bad movie?
I'm in the backlash, Uwe Boll backlash. Yeah. I'm like all pro Uwe Boll. I think he's all right. I hope he makes a Half-Life movie.
Watch what you wish for there. You guys must have people approaching you.
Yeah, I think the legal. I know that we got a mail from somebody. There's always people sending mail like, you know, I did this or that in Hollywood and I want to make a Portal movie or I want to make this. But yeah, I don't know what happens. They just go straight to
like I worked with Johnny Depp on Finding Neverland. I want
Finding
to make the
Neverland
Portal movie. You're like, nope, get you.
Get me Uwe Boll for this.
I mean, would you be interested in that? Would you have any say in that? Cause,
I would have no say in it. But, I mean, I'd like to see a Half-Life movie, I guess. I guess I'd rather just play another Half-Life game than see a Half-Life movie. The track record is pretty grim of game movies. And also, Children of Men was sort of you see Children of Men? Good, sort of Half-Life. Like, if you had to make a Half-Life movie, Children of Men is kind of like what maybe you would come up with. Right. That wouldn't just beat by beat be Half-Life, but sort of give you that vibe. So.
In Canada, if you ask very politely for money, they'll give it to you. So they're giving me some money to do my next game, and it's a collaboration with a musician from Toronto called I Am Robot and Proud. It's just sort of...
Yeah, they have subsidies, don't they?
Yeah. For the game? Really?
They have subsidies.
Canada's awesome.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's like companies, different companies set up to get money.
You're only across the border, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then you get emails from them too, saying, we have money. Talk to us.
Like they solicited you?
Yeah. Well,
to say we have this budget and we want to give you some money.
Once you get on their mailing list, yeah. It's...
Yeah, we've had people over from the Canada embassy and stuff, and they say we want you to take on. They have really good graduates from the Canadian universities, and they really want to place them in like games companies and stuff, and for free. You know, they come work for free, and they've graduated from places like Waterloo and really good universities.
And they just want to give you some money.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that it helps the Ontario economy. I'm not good at the businesses. I don't know exactly how it works, but okay, so they want to fund companies that hire people from Ontario. So the government's basically pumping money into an Ontario company that gives that money back out to other Ontario people. And then they generate business. So all the money sort of stays within Ontario.
Do they know it's just you though?
Oh yeah, they know. Well, it's just me and I Am Robot and Proud. And of course my agent, and then...
Huh, well, that's cool.
No, it's totally legit. I mean...
No, I don't think you're ripping off the Canadian government. And actually, if you were ripping off the Canadian government, I don't care. More power to you.
It's one of the few games I played last year that I actually played till the end.
I know, you know why? Because it's 3 hours long.
It took me longer than 3 hours, but...
Oh, well, 5 hours long.
Yeah, about 5 hours.
So what'd you think about it? What'd you like about it?
I just like the idea that it's using technology and reinventing a genre in a way, really. You know, rather than just a standard FPS, it was like there was that new technology, the Portal technology, which we've seen before, like in other experiments and stuff, but never pulled through into a full game. And I just like the scenario, the setting was pretty weird and interesting as well. And of course, the end credits were amazing.
Inspired by God Hand, right?
God Hand.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, right.
Yeah. So we got they made these plushy companion cubes, and they didn't make a lot of them, so we each got one. But I traded it to a guy who used to work at Clover, and now he works. Yeah, you know him?
Yeah, I just met him.
Yeah, I traded it to him for a God Hand poster signed by all the guys who worked on God Hand. And again, this is like Panzer Dragoon Saga. Later found out that the companion cubes were selling for like $400 on eBay. Yeah, so that was a mistake.
You had to fight. I mean, it wasn't like, oh yeah, song, great idea, let's do it immediately, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it was pretty immediate. I don't want to make it sound like, you know,
it was
we
you
were
against
fighting.
the man.
Yeah,
Gabe Newell came down, and you were like,
ultimately, it was like the cost of, you know, catering a lunch or something. So they were like, well, I don't, you know, are you sure about this? And we said, yeah, let's try it. And they let us do it. So, I mean, there was like a brief little road bump of skepticism.
I guess the companion cube and the song are the two things that, like, everybody still talks about. I mean, almost to, like, the point of, like, I almost got sick of it, you know, after a while.
What?
But I mean, did you have any idea making with either of those two things?
No, I mean, you never really know. You're like, oh, this is a pretty funny part here.
Right.
This will be good. But yeah, you don't really know. There was one point where, so at the end of the companion cube level, you used to just like leave it, and the voice would tell you like, you know, oh, we're gonna euthanize it or this or that. And so we were doing the boss battle later on. Yeah. And you have to throw stuff in the incinerator. We're like, we never trained anyone on this incinerator thing. And that was when one of us was like, whoa, we could make people toss the companion cube in the incinerator. Like, that was the moment where it really, like, it was like, holy shit, that's going to be awesome that you have to throw it in there. And then it was pretty good. And the song, you just don't know. I mean, like Jonathan Colton, we liked him a lot. But we didn't really know what the song was going to be. As soon as we heard it, though, you know, thought it would at least be, it at least was as good as we thought it was going to be. Whether people would like it or not, we didn't know. But we knew it was like what we were looking for, because that could have totally gone south.
Right.
We would have had no plan B, like, of what we were going to do at the end. So,
Dylan, you said that was one of the few games last year you finished.
Yeah.
So is that a matter of just not having time for games, or a matter of like?
I don't obviously play every single game out there, so I kind of choose the games I want to play based on like something interesting that they have in them. And so for Portal, it had the whole Portal technology, and I like the everyday shooter stuff as well. I mean, I bought that as well and played that all the way through. And the stuff that really sticks out as different to other games.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a couple of other ones like Uncharted and Assassin's Creed, you know, the sort of standard FPS type games as well, and played those all the way through as well. And I just really, I really enjoyed those as well, but not to the same extent as stuff like Portal and Everyday Shooter.
Right. So Jonathan, I was going to ask you, like on the business side of things, did you have or want to have any input on how your game was handled? I mean, it was so much your game, like the pricing, or whether it was PSN or Xbox Live Arcade, like all that kind of stuff. Do you get very involved? Do you want to get involved?
When we're negotiating the contract, of course, there's certain things that I would like, but I mean, in terms of how much it's sold for, I don't know anything how that stuff works, and I don't care. So whatever Sony wanted to sell it for, when and where, just whatever. I think a lot of people get bummed out that their game gets delayed or whatever. Of course, I've never really experienced it, but for me, after I sent off the final build, it felt good. That's when it felt like it was done. And I didn't care that it wasn't released until like a couple weeks later or whatever.
You weren't anxious to get everybody out there playing your game? You weren't like counting the days until you were going to start to see, forum posts about it? And
with Everyday Shooter, it was different because it was just so stressful doing that whole thing. Like, I was sort of burnt out even before I started the PS3 port. So, like, I remember the day that I sent the final build, I sent my producer, Rusty, just this 2-page long email saying, yeah, the game sucks, it's screwed up, we have to change the input system, it just doesn't work. And it was that whole analog control thing, because it was meant to be a digital shooting game for a reason. Because anyways, I can go into that later, but. So yeah, and then I reverted back to builds from 6 months ago that used a slightly different algorithm for controlling the analog input. And I don't know, I just lost it. So, but my friend was on his Gmail or Gtalk at the time. It's just like, just gotta let it go.
She talked you down?
Yeah, pretty much did. I don't know what I would have done if he didn't. So, But yeah, it was really stressful, and so it was just good to just finish it.
It was your first console game, right?
Yeah, it was very scary. I was
the
like,
TRC stuff at the end. How did you find it?
not so bad.
Clearing, all the checklists. And
Not so bad.
it's all right.
The hardest part was going widescreen.
Right.
Just because of more real estate.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to do something stupid like just add more enemies, or whatever, because that would ruin the soundscape, and it just seemed cheap. So, in the end, I think it's pretty close to 4.3.
How come your text wraps on the wrong letter? Always.
Oh yeah, just get that on camera now.
It kind of wraps one letter short on every line.
I don't know, man.
Maybe it's when you play it on a Japanese version.
I think you just stressed Jonathan back out.
No, I actually have this weird thing where I think that games should have
Maybe I'll have a look.
problems, which is one of the reasons why level 3 is so like the hardest game or hardest level in the game. Because it's just, I don't know, I've always found that if some things are too perfect, then it just seems so overproduced.
Yeah, I like that. No, I like the fact the text wasn't wrapped perfectly. It kind of gave it that sort of very, very like personal feel.
That's an interesting idea about games being like too perfect and too polished. Is there like an example you think of?
A lot of the mainstream games, but I guess I can tell you the reason why I think, because every human has their flaws, and to me, a lot of times when you experience someone else's art, it's sort of like looking. Well, if you've created it, then it's like looking at a mirror. It's sort of like, or more like a photograph. Like when I play Everyday Shooter now, I sort of remember the things I was thinking about then. The further away it goes, the more it seems like not me who made that game. Like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you've gone back to your old grade school assignments, stories you've written in grade 3 or whatever, it's just like a completely different person. So when I go back and look at like some of the old games I played, I sort of get that same feeling. I think a lot of that is the flaws that come out. It humanizes the work.
Yeah. You've totally blown my mind, actually. I see a lot of like parallels between a lot of the stuff you're doing now with like the bit generation and the pixel junk stuff, and with stuff like Everyday Shooter.
Yeah.
Kind of like the pseudo retro kind of like stripped down to its basics kind of gameplay type elements.
Yeah,
like
games that we can like make ourselves. Or you don't really need massive teams to make them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, you worked with massive teams in the past. Is that like a conscious decision where you were like, I just want to get something that's going to be made in like 6 months, or a year or whatever.
Basically, yeah. I mean, when you're a games creator, you have all these ideas for games you want to make, and if you slot each one into only a 2 or 3 year production process, then you're not going to be able to make all the games.
Right.
And so I thought, well, let's not do that. Let's actually try and make as many games as I can make within.
Right. David Jaffe was talking about, like, he's plotted it out, like, I'm such and such years old, 35 years old, I'll probably be making games for like 30 more years. If those are AAA games, I think it was David Jaffe, I might have only 6 more games left in me.
Yeah. That's feels like such a waste when you have so many ideas, running around your mind.
Right. But you've already had, I mean, I was looking at your Moby Games background, I kind of pitch you as, I guess, like the Forrest Gump of the video game world, but I mean that in like the most positive way possible.
As well.
But in that you were there in like all these significant time periods, like, I mean, Star Fox, and then which you were at Nintendo in Japan, then Blasto, which famous for like another reason.
Oh, you did Blasto?
Yeah.
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 There was a lot of hype about Blasto. It was
it was overhyped.
Yeah, I think it was a victim of the overhyping because it wasn't that bad.
I don't think it was. Yeah.
It was a bit unfinished. We had a very tight schedule on Blasto.
Oh, really?
So tight that we were sleeping under our desks and stuff. So yeah, it was a bit crazy. I think it was like Sony, Foster City, Sony America's first sort of like PlayStation 1 internal title,
right.
And they hadn't quite sorted out the fact that you need more time to make a PlayStation 1 title compared to the previous games they've been making, and so it was a bit of hell at the end.
I think at the time it was was it like a Mario killer or something? It was like, it was pitched as like a, yeah, well, of course.
Sony marketing.
Or it's like, yeah, like a Crash Bandicoot killer or something like at that time.
In it though, right?
Yeah, it was
right.
totally different, yeah.
I just remember a Next Generation cover.
Yes.
That it was on. That was like my first big exposure to it, and
they hyped it up as like the second.
Amazing people can remember it.
But then you were at Polyphony for Gran Turismo?
I helped out on that, but no, I wasn't at Polyphony directly. So I went to Sony Japan after that.
Okay.
So not everything on Moby Games is true.
Right. Don't believe everything you read on Moby Games.
Yeah, there I made a game called, what was it called? Ape Escape 2001, which is
first Ape
it's the
Escape?
second one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it only came out in Japan, but it was a very weird game.
Was that the one where you were collecting all the pants?
Yeah.
What? Like, where did that come from?
It was one of those crazy Japanese games.
Yeah. It wasn't bad though, actually, as I remember. Yeah, it was just weird. I just remember thinking like, okay, this is good. It's an Ape Escape game, but why? There's like a long trail of pants. Like there was some cultural thing I must be missing here with like
washing machine and
yeah, exactly.
It was definitely weird.
Yeah. John, you work on a really small team. Eric, you work in like obviously you work at Valve, but you have like your kind of mini teams within Valve. So, I mean, is this like a indictment of like big bloated 200-man production teams? Is it just not worth it as you guys see it? I mean, do you want to move on and work in like a big production as part of a larger team, or?
I don't want to, but I hope they exist because there are some big budget games that I'd like to play. I call them knitting games. Like Heavenly Sword is like a knitting game because you just do one action and then you just keep getting this feedback. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like you just sit there and chill out and not think so much. Like a lot of the times, you know, I'll be working so hard on my own games and thinking about how to put them together. At the end of the day, you don't really want to play a complicated game. It's just, it almost seems like work because then you, not only do you have to think really hard, but then you have to think like, oh wow, this is an interesting thing. I should totally remember this for my thing. And then suddenly you're on the computer again doing this, and it's not, you're not sleeping. And I think there will be still big mainstream titles because they make a lot of money. Didn't Super Smash Brothers sold like 200,000 the first week or something?
Yeah, first day probably.
It's over 1 million.
That's really? Like that. That's way more than. I mean, how many independent teams you need to make that sort of revenue, right? I'm just saying that from the publisher's point of view.
Sure. Can you see yourself working as part of like one of those big on an epic like?
I do have fantasies of taking someone's $1 million and making a game out of it, but not in any sort of reality do I see that happening. I mean, if someone said, "Here's $1 million," I do have an idea that would take $1 million to do, but A, I don't think I'm ready to do it, and B, I don't have it. I mean, that's not happening, so I don't think about it much.
Both at Double Fine and at Valve. I mean, everybody's still committed to the project, but it's hard to keep morale up over 2-3 year development cycle because you lose. Valve's pretty good with it because they play test. You know, there's a lot about Valve talks about Cabal process and this and that, but they're not joking about that play testing stuff. There's people coming in and play testing, you know, once, twice a week, and they play through the game, and the team sits there and watches them play. You at least get a fresh set of eyes on it. When we were working on Psychonauts, Microsoft did some external testing, but we didn't do a lot of external testing that we got to see. And I was there for 2.5 years, but there were people who had been there for 4 years working on it. Yeah. And you just lose all perspective. You're just going on by your gut. Like, is this good? I don't know if this is any good. I hate it because I've seen it 1 million times. But maybe someone else is gonna like it. So the playtesting helps with that. But like writing a funny game is even worse because like if you're writing like Space Marine macho dialogue, it's pretty much just as tough like the 50th time you hear it as the first time. But jokes are funny like maybe the first time.
Right.
And at Double Fine, we all sat in one big room, except for Tim, who smartly segregated himself somewhere else. And so people have been there 14 hours a day for 4 years, and these jokes are blaring out of 50 monitors to just grim, stony silence. It was the worst experience of my. I mean, except that I love Tim, I love everybody at Double Fine, and Psychonauts turned out okay, but it was just torture. It was the grimmest thing. That I mean, like short of like working in a cancer ward for children or something. It was about as depressing a thing as you could possibly do.
Do you guys focus test at all, like with your games? Do you? No.
I don't know. I don't like playtesting. It's just. I think it's very selfish the way I make games. I just sort of make it for myself, hope that other people would like it. I mean, I sort of have this idea that as artists, you go and you sort of do your own expression, and then you hope that will sort of make someone else who experiences whatever you did think in a different way or think about something else. But it's not. It's like everybody sort of has that one thing that they can say really well. So it's just best that you just say that thing really well. And it might not reach anybody, but to at least someone who really needs to hear whatever you had to say, they would hear it in the right way.
But I think that's probably a valid way to do it for if you're developing a game yourself. If you're developing a game with a team of 20 people, especially at Valve where there's not a strict hierarchy, you need some way to resolve conflicts, and one of those ways is watch people play it. There's no arguing. If they can't figure out how to get through this level, then however genius you may think your design is, it's clearly not working.
What do you mean by conflicts?
One person wants to do one thing, one person wants to do
you need to reconcile everybody's,
I'd say it should be up to whoever is the director of the vision.
Well, but okay.
It's kind of flat though, isn't it, Valve?
Yeah, it's flat. There's no everybody sort of has a specialty, but like if you look at the credits of the Valve games, it's just everybody's name listed, from the guy who.
I kind of agree with John that I think for a regular or a decent game, you need like a strong director with his vision who can kind of override people. And
I mean, I'm all for that, and that's how Double Fine was, and there's some. It's kind of comforting to have the guy with the strong vision, because when you get into the despairing phase in year 2 or whatever, you still have that guy who's like, come on, it's my vision, I know what I'm doing, I'm behind it. If it in the Cabal process, again, playtesting helps, but it's sort of like everybody's, there's no central guy who's you're following his vision, and it helps it if you have like a really charismatic, fearless leader like Tim at Double Fine or something. But honestly, I mean, there are only so many auteurs in the world that are worth following. I mean, Miyamoto or Tim or a few other people. So I think what Valve, to their credit, tried to do was let's come up with a process where smart people who aren't necessarily, visionary geniuses can get together and actually create an incredible game.
Did you guys ever suffer for that though? Like not having one person, it's like, look, let's just make a decision on this. Instead, it kind of has to go to everybody, and then it has to go to playtesting, and then it has to go to that. Do you ever just want like somebody just make the call? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, everybody always wants to. I mean, I'd love to have somebody step in and solve all my. Just ultimately, I'm not that much of a rebel. I want somebody to come in and tell me what to do, more or less. But eventually, you have to step up and do it. And the other thing about the Valve process is, and I think. I don't want to get fired, but it's good at creating incredibly high quality products, but it's not good at creating incredibly high quality products on any sort of schedule, because there's a lot of working things out, right? If you had a visionary, he's like, well, I don't care. I think this will work, so just do it. Do this, do this, do this, do this.
Right.
When you need to come to a sort of design compromise all the time, it takes longer.
That's what I think, like, you guys at Valve and id are in like a special place where you can come out with higher quality games because you're not beholden like to a publisher, really. I mean, you get to say when the game is really done. Nobody's gonna boss you around. You're not gonna not make payroll. A year. I mean, you guys completely scrapped. Were you there when Half-Life 2 got thrown out?
I wasn't there. I was sad because I wanted to play Half-Life 2, so I heard about it. But and part of that is that there's sort of this unsung part of Valve where Valve sort of thought of a lot of really smart game design people, but arguably smarter than the game design people are the business people that you never hear about at Valve, who are like these super duper genius level business people that have made it so that, I mean, their goal in life is to create an atmosphere where the Valve is profitable enough to just let the creative people do more or less what they want to do.
Right.
And they don't get a whole lot of credit. So, and also in charge of giving me raises. So, I'd like to say.
You would give a shout out to
Good
like
job.
a
Yeah,
CEO
yeah.
or like an
Scotland.
accountant.
Good job.
He's the
Good
guy.
job all to our legal staff.
Dylan, how much are you involved in like the business end of
I
things?
control it all. So we're only a small company, so there's only 30 of us.
Right.
So I kind of carefully balance like our Nintendo work with like our Pixel Junk work to try and so we can actually do our independent stuff as well as do the more sort of full-on game.
Yeah.
And because if we were to go entirely independent, then it's just way too much risk at the moment.
Right.
So, not for a company our size anyway.
Is that something that's important to you to stay independent, or do you? I mean, you must get courted all the time with all of the mergers and all the buyouts and things that are happening.
Yeah, I prefer to be my own man, sort of thing, rather than have to listen to someone else.
Right.
So obviously, I have to listen when I'm making a Nintendo game. I have to listen to Miyamoto, for example. But in general, it feels better to be able to control the projects directly and not have to listen to anybody else. So.
Right.
What was working with Miyamoto like?
That was pretty cool. He's one thing I've listened to Miyamoto is he has an amazing eye for detail, and so that's what makes him a good director. I think is because you will show him something and he'll point out the bits that you didn't want him to see. You know, like it could be it could be anything. It could be a pixel out of place somewhere on the screen, and he would have spotted it. And then he's very hands-on with the controls, and so like he's very picky with controls. So and he'll go into like diagrams and things to try and explain how he wants the curves of the buttons to work, or the way acceleration has to flow in or whatever. He'll just get it precisely down.
Yeah, because he has that illustration background, right? So he would come in and like give you like a really
very minute details. I mean, not so much nowadays, but back.
Right. So have you had the experience of him, quote unquote, upending the tea table on you and your game?
Well, he did it for Star Fox 2, but it wasn't really because of our game. It was because of the PlayStation 1 and all the hardware had just come out at the time, and really the FX chip graphics weren't up to scratch. So
Right.
So it got cancelled.
You said you moved away after Star Fox 2 got canceled.
Yeah,
Was that like a huge, awful thing that happened? You worked and worked
it wasn't
and
that
worked?
bad, no, because I mean, it was all done in a nice way. It's just unfortunate that it happened. The reason why I moved away is because I saw the PlayStation 1, and the 3D power of the PlayStation 1 was just so good at the time that I wanted to work on it.
Yeah.
And so then I applied for a job at Sony and got one, so I came over.
We still have to finish up those TF movies. Those are still in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of those left.
Those are excellent, by the way. So where did that idea come from?
Actually, I mean, we kind of sort of wanted to do them, but there was an ATI, I don't know if it was NVIDIA or ATI, there was going to be a demo of somebody was giving a speech at ATI. We were like, oh, let's make a little movie, and it was the Heavy movie to show off what you could do with a particular card. And it was like, we really liked it, and so we decided, this is really cool. Let's just do it for all the characters. And we're slowly, I think we've got a plan for all of them, but we're just sort of slowly knocking them out.
So Dylan, what about you? What are you? What's keeping you busy these days?
Eden, the next Pixel Junk. That's taking up all my time at the moment. So.
Talk a little bit about that. Like, where'd the idea come from? Were you just really happy with Monsters, and you're like, we're gonna make this into a series?
We started it before we finished Monsters, so we started like in June last year, and I really wanted to work with this artist called Bion in Kyoto, and he came up with all these wacky ideas, plants and things. And okay, let's try and get these implemented. And so we started prototyping. We got them implemented on the PS3, we got them running and all physically simulated and everything. And it was all kind of cool looking. And then we said, okay, so what the hell is the game going to be? And really, we got to this point.
Comes up like right
Yeah.
until that point.
We had no, it looked good. It looked really good. But there's absolutely nothing. We didn't even have a character or anything. We didn't know whether it's going to be like a rhythm action game or anything. So we just kind of took it back a step and then just did start doing weekly builds and getting everybody to come up with ideas and things to do in the game and trying to work out a way to make it into a game. And then things started clicking together, and it just came together really quickly from the beginning of this year. And that's when we decided to release a video of it, just to gauge people's reactions to it. So
I need to ask you this: are the graphics vectors? Like, are they programmed vectors?
We use vectors and
the binding ones.
Yeah. There's this tool we use to make the plants, and it converts them into textures and vectors at the same time.
Damn it!
It's really weird. Yeah.
Because me and my buddy were researching for a game, to figure out the visual style, and then we saw the screenshot. And at one point, I Gmailed him, and I was like, "Look, this is so awesome! I can't stop looking at it." He's like, "Dude, you have to stop looking at it, or else our game is gonna look like that."
I'm curious, what all games that you guys either are seeing now or that you've seen recently that have kind of inspired you in one way or another. Not even necessarily that you enjoy playing or are looking forward to playing, but John, it sounds like
that and dial hacks. I can't.
Dial hacks.
I can't stop thinking about
Is that another bit?
Generations. I didn't do that.
I'm trying to remember which one that one.
It's
was.
the one. It's like match 3 or match hexagon. It's color
Oh,
matching.
I never figured that one out.
You kind of rotate the pieces.
they were kind of like WarioWare games, right? Where you didn't necessarily bother with the instruction or look online. You're just like, I should be able to I'll probably be able to figure this out in like a couple minutes.
I had to use facts to figure yours out.
Yeah,
but once I did, that was the one I played the longest.
Doubling is genius, but it's so bad when you lose a stack. It gets so depressing.
It does. It is. It's like super depressing.
I had a massive argument with Nintendo about that.
Oh, really?
Because the game that I wanted to make was slightly different, but Nintendo wanted to make it more intuitive. So they said that when you die, you have to feel like you've died. So
they said that?
Yeah. So when you lose a stack, you lose a stack, and so the version I had was more like a pachinko game, where as you play, you're kind of sending up all these pieces on the right, which is firing up the puck. And it's kind of like a flow, like an ebb and flow kind of game.
Yes.
It's not like one shot and then
the experience isn't like that, but it's like...
It's more of like this sort of experience, yeah. But it was a little bit more like experimental, so I can understand where they were coming from. But yeah, the interesting that the combo idea went in our first prototype.
Oh, yeah?
So it was one of the ideas that came in the first week, and then just carried all the way through to the end. And it just worked so well, the doubling up as you go around.
It was that one and the one that was kind of like Gravatar.
Yeah, Orbital.
That was a lot of fun too. Those are the two I played the most. I had all of them, and those are the two I played the most.
Dial Hex was the one that was closest to a regular puzzle game. It's like
it wasn't the game itself, but the way it used music as a form of narrative. Yeah. I found so what would happen is you were supposed to match a certain color, and when you matched enough of that, it would change the music just a little bit, and it made it feel like you were it felt like reading a book, but listening to music. It gave this real art to it.
And they did a good job. Yeah. The other 6 titles in the, we made one of them, but the other 6 titles are made by a company called Skip, who are in Tokyo.
They were
Chibi Robo and
they made Chibi Robo.
So what about you guys? The other games that inspire you in one way?
The DS version of Zelda was very well done, I thought, for like an implementation. I mean, it used all the features of the DS in really innovative ways. Like the bosses and everything were just. I mean, that game has probably some of the best bosses in a game that I've seen of ideas.
It seems like only just now DS games are not afraid to fully embrace the touch screen. Using touch as everything was like a big departure, and I'm sure like a big deal within Nintendo.
We got our holes ripped, didn't we, for racing Star Fox Command with a touch screen only.
Touch screen? Yeah, I didn't realize that.
And everybody's like, we want the digital controls, and it's like, that's not, we were trying to do something new and different. We didn't want to go back.
Well, it's not like you had to make a new peripheral for it. They built the touchscreen themselves. You're just using it, for Christ's sake.
What else was out last year that was interesting? Oh, I mean, I realised Assassin's Creed. The game itself could have done with a bit more variation, perhaps, in what you're doing, but the actual world was amazing. I mean, I've always wanted to visit the Middle East, but without any problems. Exactly, yeah. Well, I didn't want to say that. But, so it was really, really cool, to actually be able to do that.
Yeah, the first time you come up over the hill, and I don't know if it's Damascus or what, it's like, holy shit, you can go to every location you're seeing. It just seems like, wow, this is an amazing world. And then I think a few hours later when you realize, okay, I'm just doing these same 3 things, it takes away from a little bit, but it's still amazing, just like the scope.
The art direction, the scope and the level of work they put into it.
Does that make you want to do, like, expand the team out to 8 people? And
No, but it makes me want to play Assassin's Creed 2. So I just hope they release it at some point. So.
Yeah. I think probably.
Half-Life 2. That also had a very similar feeling of like being immersed in the whole world. That was really good.
What I like about Half-Life and about Portal, and I'm hoping it influences other people, is that the plot isn't necessarily, it's not told through cutscenes or text or sometimes not even the voiceover, but that you're in this entire construction and that you're going to get out of it. And kind of the people who've been there before you and gone insane and fallen in love with the companion cube. That's all told in a way that's purely game-based, in a way that couldn't be done in a movie. I mean, you guys were never considering like, okay, maybe you'll walk under here and then it'll go to a cutscene and then you'll go and you'll see it.
Yeah, no, that we were never considering. But some of it was just all coming out of constraints. Like, there were like 9 people or 8 people working on it. And there were certain things that were just like, in retrospect, maybe it wasn't such a great idea, but we think, well, let's have a robot that's your buddy that comes with you. And we're like, whoa, we can't do that. So let's just have somebody talk to you the whole time. But some of it too is when I was reviewing games for CGW and all, I always had this thing where a lot of games had this delta between like the story, which is told by the dialogue and the narrative, and sort of the gameplay story, which are the actions that you take in the game world.
Right.
And when I was reviewing games, I would always kind of take note of that, and I promised myself if I ever got a chance to make a game, I'd try and reduce that delta to like as small as possible.
Right.
0 if possible. In Portal, I actually Psychonauts, I didn't really get the chance to do that. That actually the delta isn't that high because it's just so crazy. But on Portal, it's as close to 0 as I could possibly make it. It's hard to tell where the gameplay begins and the story ends, or the story ends and the gameplay begins. And part of that is just paring away as much story as possible. Like when we would do playtests, at the end of every playtest, I'd ask people, tell me what happened, tell me the story. And if they couldn't tell me the story, it was a pretty clear indication, to me at least, that they just weren't interested and I was failing. Right. And usually that meant I needed to just take stuff out. Like it never hurt us taking stuff out and trying to simplify it.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people might think, oh, they're not getting the story, we need to tell it more, we need to tell it better. If they're not getting it, then they're missing it, we need to throw more story.
And that's just kind of a gut feeling. Like I write for video games professionally, but if there's a way to button through I'm like, get me through this cutscene, I don't want to watch it.
Right.
I almost don't think of games that much as a narrative medium. I mean, everybody's talking about storytelling games or whatever. I kind of think of what I do as sort of like being a composer for a movie. Like, gameplay is what people are there for, and I'm just sort of enhancing the gameplay in ways that I can that aren't that intrusive or obvious, which generally means pulling it back a little bit. Which isn't to say, there's plenty of games, lots of RPGs and stuff have really detailed stories that the game kind of stops and the story starts, and people seem to like it. Final Fantasy sells a lot. I like the gameplay mechanics, but I want to get past the story parts as fast as possible. And good writing wouldn't even necessarily help that. I'm there for the game. I'm playing the game, right?
So what about you, Eric?
I was telling these guys earlier, like right now, I'm enjoying my time with you, Mark McDonald, but I wish I was back at the hotel playing Patapon. Patapon is the greatest game ever. It's just so awesome that they managed to kind of mix this. Have you played it? Patapon?
Yeah.
The sort of rhythm mechanic that isn't so super complicated that I can't like wrap my head around it, and kind of charming art direction, but also this really deep like strategy and RPG and like Monster Hunter-esque collection layer. Yeah, I'm thinking about, like, right now I'm talking to you about Patapon, but in my mind I'm thinking about how I'm going to go back and I'm going to collect some, like, some titanium ore and some cherry branches. Yeah, I'm really way into Patapon right now.